This is it, Hottie. It's the final show of the season. Just a couple days before Thanksgiving here in the U.S., less than a week, if you can believe it, before registration opens for the 2020 Leadville 100.
Yeah, we're closing out with a very special guest. It's Alison Tetrick, a consecutive three-time gravel world champ, as well as the record holder for the DK200.
Wow, she is fast, she is experienced. I'm excited to have this show. I think it's worth mentioning that while she is all of those things, she is also a regular, full-time, regular desk job holding outside the cycling industry type of person. She is, in many ways, a lot like most of our listeners, except for she's much, much faster. What we're interested in for this show, though, is the fact that in 2020, she is going to be racing the Leadboat Challenge. That is the Leadville 100 on August 15th, followed by the Steamboat Gravel Endurance Race the very next day.
Of course, we'll be talking to her about her plans for this races, Leadboat, that is, and a little bit about our plans for season 3 of this podcast. In this season finale of the Leadville Podcast, presented by Floyd's of Leadville.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. Season 2, episode 28 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, Hottie. You got a big feast planned?
I got big plans. I got plans on eating big. Those are my plans. You know, I have the greatest mother-in-law on the face of the earth, Lydia. She does all the work, Fatty, everything.
Ooh,
I mean,
nice.
I'm a cook. I cook, and I know what to do. I know my way around the kitchen, but she loves to handle it all and does an excellent job. The best bird. I mean, look, my mother knows how to cook as well, but my mother-in-law can really nail the turkey.
Is she baking it? Is she pressure cooking? Deep fat frying? I mean, how is she doing it?
Yeah, traditional method, a roast.
All right.
She roasts in an oven, yeah, and it comes out great all the time.
Well, I wish I could say that. I am, as I always am, in charge of 3 particular items on Thanksgiving. I make a sweet and savory steamed carrot dish, worth hearing about, or worth trying, I should say. I do the mashed potatoes, and I make a crustless banana cream pie, sort of a banana cream parfait, all from scratch. It is really good. I'm not great or adventurous chef-wise, but over the past 30 or so years, I have pretty much gotten those 3 dishes nailed. But enough about food. We got to start thinking about next year, August, racing hard. Let's talk about what we've got in store for this season-ending show.
Yeah, it's a good one here. We have Alison Tetrick with us today. She may just be the brightest star in the gravel universe today, men or women, with 3 back-to-back gravel worlds wins, as well as being the record holder in what is, without question, the most famous endurance gravel event in the world. That's the DK200.
Yeah, I'm afraid of doing that. The skill set and training overlap between endurance mountain bike races like Leadville 100 and all its qualifiers and gravel races is pretty huge. So the fact that Alison currently doesn't even own a mountain bike is not, I think, going to keep her from laying down a very fast time at the 2020 Leadville 100.
Yep, but she's not going to have long to relax at the finish line at 6th and Harrison, though. She's going to have to pack, get out of town, and drive 2.5 hours to Steamboat Springs, and then race the Steamboat Springs gravel race the following morning. That's 250 tough miles over 2 days.
It is. And after that, I think our listeners are going to want to stick around. You and I are going to talk a little bit about our plans for season 3 of this show.
Season 3, you said? There's going to be a season 3?
If we can get our sponsors on board for another season, I think there just may be a season 3. Which reminds me, we should quickly thank our sponsors for their support in this season of the show.
Yes, we should. First, our presenting sponsor, Floyd's of Leadville at floydsofleadville.com. Use the code FATTY at checkout for 15% off your first 2 orders of the finest CBD products available.
And the feed fueled us through the whole season. In fact, I pretty much every day, anytime I'm on a bike, I use something I got from the feed. Go to thefeed.com and use the code Leadville15 for a 15% discount on Morton Drink Mix and their new extremely caffeinated gels.
Banjo Brothers has also been with us since the very beginning of the show, and we're big fans of their tough, practical, and affordable bags. Get 15% off any of their bags by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites.
And we've been lucky enough to be supported by Shimano, which makes the best road, gravel, and mountain bike components. Honestly, Hottie, the more I ride with that new XTR, the less I want to ride anything else. It is just the best drivetrain I have ever owned. It is the fastest, easiest, most confident shifting I have ever experienced on a mountain bike. It is just, well, frankly, damn near perfect. Head on over to bike.shimano.com to learn more.
And finally, our good friends at Envy, who have just sent me what has to be the finest set of gravel wheels going. Yes, they have a gravel-specific wheel. It's the G23. Just got them, Fatty. I have tires mounted on them. They're all sealed up. They're all ready to go. I just got to go out and ride them. You can check out the G23s at ENVE, that is envy.com.
Oh, I really want to see that. When you get a new set of Envy wheels, you just kind of stare at them for a while. At least I do. So big thanks to all of this season's sponsors of the Leadville Podcast, presented by Floyd's of Leadville. And now let's welcome our guest, Alison Tetrick. Let's go ahead and start with the why. What are you doing on this show? Everyone knows you are the gravel world's champ 3 times now. And that is obviously a huge part of your life. And this is the Leadville Podcast. So, again, what are you doing here?
That is a very good question. Transitioning from road racing to gravel and, becoming gravel royalty, of course, because who doesn't like being royalty? I should not be on the Leadville Podcast. I don't even own a mountain bike, but I am a crazy person, and I have signed up for Leadboat, which is doing Leadville 100 mountain bike race, and then driving to Steamboat and doing 150 miles of gravel at Steamboat Gravel the next day, which now we're calling Leadboat. So I am officially crazy.
Right, which, by the way, you've done neither of these events, right? Because Steamboat Gravel, which had its inaugural event this year, at least the Open where they had actual signups, had a conflict with Gravel Worlds. So you went to Gravel Worlds where you were defending champion, and defended successfully, by the way, folks. So this is a first time for both events for you on both these terrains?
Yep, there'll be first for everything. And definitely also I'd like to mention Leadville will be my first mountain bike race.
Hello. That's diving into the deep end, Fatty.
That is. I'm actually just a little bit blown away by this. So tell us how you came to this decision that you're going to go ahead and do this very difficult race at altitude on a mountain bike, and then make the 2.5-hour drive to Steamboat Springs and do a 150-mile gravel race. That just seems like a lot.
Well, I think we have to, it's definitely crazy. I think we have to go back to when I first was introduced to gravel racing or riding. I was still racing professional road riding on a world tour team. And I told him I wanted to do a race called Dirty Kansas, which most people know about, this 200-mile road race in Kansas. And I won Dirty Kansas, and something really incredible happened to me where I just fell in love with gravel racing and the community, especially in Emporia, Kansas. And there's this woman, Christy Moan, that runs the event out there and is really big on getting more women at Dirty Kansas. And now she is collaborating with Lifetime Fitness, which of course owns Leadville. And Christy texts me and she says, "Hey, I have a crazy idea to run by you. I want to see if you'll be interested." And I just text her back and I say, "I'm in," the emoji with like hand raised and those like BFF sisters like dancing. And she goes, you probably shouldn't say yes to every question I ask you. And I said, oh, I love you. No problem. And she writes me back, maybe call me. And so I call her and she's like, well, Lifetime and Dirty Kansas, how about Leadville? And then the next day do Steamboat. I was like, okay. She's like, that's it? She's like, I got to tell him I had to negotiate and hassle you to do this. I'm like, no, sounds great. I'm in. So next thing I know, I'm in. And then I sat down and I text my partner and I'm going, I think I just signed up for the stupidest idea in the entire world. I probably should have asked you first.
Yeah. I think there was 11 other people who got a similar call to Alison's, inviting them to this first ever Leadboat challenge. And then they have, I think, another 38 another 38 slots open for folks. It's going to be a small field doing the double at least. Obviously, Leadville will still be Leadville, Steamboat Gravel will still be SBT Gravel. If you want to do one or the other, that's going to be a nice big field. But there's a small group that will be doing both. Again, 12 invitees, Alison Tetrick being one of them, and some other names you might know from this show, like Yuri Oswald's also been invited and has accepted. I think Yuri will be doing his first Leadville.
This will be his first Leadville.
So we're going to have to talk to him. Yuri's booked. We got to hear what he's going to do.
He was a little nervous. He was texting me like, dude, I've never done Leadville. I didn't want to. What are we doing? And Yuri lives less than a mile from me. And it's funny because out of this, I live in Petaluma, California, up in Sonoma County. And, Petaluma has 2 Dirty Kansas winners in it. Who would have thought?
Oh, yeah.
And now 2 Leadboat competitors.
But you're the only one with the record, right? From DK? Your record still stands at DK200.
Do have the record.
Do I have that correct, right?
Yes.
11 hours, 40 minutes, 41 seconds, 2017.
41 seconds. Yep. You got it.
41 seconds, right.
So what is your objective for Leadboat? Is there an objective, or is this more of I'm trying something new and just want to see whether I like it?
Oh, man. Well, I should, remind you guys I don't own a mountain bike yet, so maybe I need to start that.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
And we have plenty of time to discuss that. And as far as objective, I'm not going to go out to win Leadville. I have a big weekend, 250 miles of dirt with a big transfer in between. I think it's about 2.5 hours of driving between Steamboat Springs and Leadville. So, though, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and way before Dirty Kansas, my senior portraits in high school and growing up wanting to be a rodeo queen, I really love belt buckles. So my Leadville goal is I want the biggest buckle possible.
I'm not at all worried about that. Okay, so
I was nervous to say that. I'm nervous to say that out loud.
No, I think that it is a perfectly achievable goal for you to get the big buckle. That's a sub 9 hour finish. And I would honestly be astonished if you finish any slower than 8 hours.
Oh,
what do you think, Hottie?
Well, look, there's been a number of folks with similar pedigrees to Alison's who have gold buckled without much of an issue, and have actually competed and shown themselves near the front of the race. So yeah, I would think that something sub 8 is well within her reach based on, my limited knowledge of her. And now we were talking earlier, Allison, that bike handling, especially mountain bike handling, is going to be a new thing for you. Have you started thinking about how you're going to get over the hump there?
First I need to get a mountain bike because I have only ridden a mountain bike I can count on 3 fingers that many times I've ridden a mountain bike in my life. So first step is get a mountain bike and maybe go for a ride. What do you guys think?
That's a good start. Yeah,
that's a good place to start. So what bike are you looking at? Have you you've been talking with Specialized about which of many bikes would actually be good on the Leadville course?
I probably should have texted or called my manager at Specialized prior to signing up for this, but I did text him. I said, I just signed up for Leadville. Maybe I can borrow a mountain bike. And he goes, you're crazy. So I am looking at the options. I ride for Specialized, and I of course, love their bikes. And lucky for me, they have an incredible quiver of mountain bikes as well to choose from. I'm looking really hard at the Specialized Epic Evo. So a full suspension. It's still really light and capable, but you guys can tell me. I mean, the new Specialized Epic is at hardtail is at 17 pounds. It's really light. That might be good for all those climbs at Leadville, but I'm also looking to make sure I have confidence and stability on some of those descents, which I heard can be pretty gnarly. The double track, people coming up, you're coming down. I mean, I don't ride single track ever. So, I want to make sure I'm ready for that. So you guys can kind of help me decide if I want the, full squish. Am I going hardtail? One of the lightest bikes on the market. I don't know. But the bike I'm going to own right now that I decide to train on is going to be the Evo. So I can get used to handling a mountain bike with a lot of confidence and stability.
That's going to feel odd at first as someone who has a lot of history on the road and now on gravel, to be on a mountain bike that is full suspension where you're used to zero suspension is going to really feel, I think it's going to feel peculiar. So I would have, had I been betting, I would have bet an S-Works Epic hardtail for you. That's what I'm going to be.
Okay.
I think you'll be surprised, Alison, at how good the full suspension bikes have become. You don't have a lot. Obviously, you don't have a lot of track record here, but they all lock out now.
3 mountain bike rides. In my life.
I think you will go, wow, this is a revelation, especially with the Big S. I mean, that company in particular has paid real close attention to endurance mountain biking, cross country mountain biking, and making premier products. That Epic machine is a wonderful ride. It's going to do quite well. And they lock out and they're quite efficient under pedaling power. That said, you're listening to a guy who thinks also that Leadville could be accomplished and possibly won on a drop bar bike, on a good, sturdy gravel bike. Now, would I advise a first timer to go do that? No, I wouldn't. I would say get on a proper flat bar knobby bike and go out and ride and do some rides. And you've got access to, the equipment to go, okay, I'm going to do some rides on the full suspension. I'm going to try the hardtail. Just whatever you come to, whatever you decide, make sure you've got that decision made like a month and a half out before the race. So that's it. You're not like wandering back and forth between equipment choices. You've got it nailed down and that's the bike you want. So, and look, for the folks who don't know Alison's story, I mean, Alison has an amazing story about getting into road racing. And Alison, you have a history of learning very quick, learning on the fly. You came from a tennis background, and suddenly you're a world-class road racer, right? I mean, so you have
there too.
Yeah, you have evolved and made yourself a different athlete or taken on new challenges very quickly and learned very quickly in the past.
Yeah, I played NCAA tennis and did some stint in running into triathlon, and then became a professional cyclist all within, a year after graduating college. So yeah, I can learn. I have a high degree of respect for pavement or hitting the ground. I've been through pretty big crashes, of course, with road racing. And so I like to feel safe and confident. And it's interesting, as my career has transitioned from road into gravel, this is a specialized tagline here, but, smooth is fast, or smoother is faster with the Roubaix. And I love my tarmac. It's so fast. And, coming from a road race background, that's all I ever wanted was this tarmac, and it's fast and it's light and twitchy. Then I started riding the Roubaix this year, and I'm like putting on 30 millimeter tubeless tires. I got that little suspension in the head shock with the Future Shock 2.0. And feeling like comfortable and having that little like bit of suspension on the road bike. I don't know if I'm getting old, but I'm going, this is pretty comfortable. I think I'm pretty fast and confident, and, I can take it on, other courses like Belgian Waffle Ride, or, we have this local adventure series called the Grasshoppers. I can take that bike out too. So I think there is something, if you're comfortable and stable, to be fast. But my question for you guys is, do I do a dropper post or not? Because I think I want to wear baggies too. So, I'm kind of worried about the wardrobe. Like, if a mountain biker, do I need to get a new outfit? I'm just curious. First we'll talk about dropper post, second outfit.
Okay, so I'm interested in Hottie's perspective on dropper post. I don't own a dropper post, so I guess that's my answer to the question. The kind of racing that I do, and which is, anything that is Leadville or Leadville-esque, that is, long, fairly non-technical cross-country racing. I don't really need a dropper post, and I don't want
You had me at non-technical, thank heavens.
Yeah. How about you, Hottie?
Droppers.
Dropper post? I mean, you saw some out there as you were crewing for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Year, right?
Yeah, droppers are all the rage. They are legit. They will make you a better mountain biker. The question becomes with the Leadville Trail 100 is it a traditional mountain bike race? In other words, does it present the type of terrain where it's going to be worth dragging around the extra couple of 100 grams? And
for 10 minutes, it does. Is what
right, it does, and it can. And if you are the type of person who maybe struggles on the climbs but can really rip descent and make up time there, then a dropper is going to be your friend, absolutely. But if you're just willing to look at the descents as spots where I'm just not going to mess up there, I'm just going to, just stay the course and stay on the course and be conservative, then you can stay away from the dropper and just focus more on the climbs. If I'm building a mountain bike right now, just for fun, absolutely it has a dropper post. If I'm building a mountain bike for Leadville, I'm probably hemming and hawing a little bit. Probably not. I probably stick to what I've done in the past, which is run a traditional post. Now, clothing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're going to see a lot of Lycra there. That's just, first of all, a lot of Lycra.
I can't remember seeing any baggies.
Well, you know where I ran into baggies is at the expo. My good friend Jeff with 11 Pine, who runs a small clothing company in Colorado. He has baggies that you can zip tight along the sides. They have zippers along the sides that make them a little more aero. So you might see a pair of those running around the Leadville Trail 100.
Yeah, but not an Allison. Wear your road kit. You don't wear baggies. Not for Leadville. It really does look like people have suited up as if it were for a road race at that.
Okay.
At the
I'm comfortable with road races.
Yeah. Although I will say that our friend Larissa Connors, who has won the Leadville 100, was out there on the starting line wearing a big old Camelback. And, you don't see a lot of those in a road or gravel race. So, and it's something perhaps for you to think about. I mean, really, and I think that you are a lot like perhaps a lot of our listeners in this one particular way. Of course, most of our listeners are not world champions and do not have a record at the Dirty Kanza, but a lot of them do or have ridden a lot of road and are perhaps not as comfortable on mountain bikes, and so are interested in having the least, I guess, having the fewest new vectors as possible. And for that, meaning that you don't have to grab for a bottle on a sketchy downhill and maybe not having to think about yet another moving part that is a dropper. Look for ways that you can keep the ride reasonably familiar feeling. Seems like a right thing.
So I wear a Camelback chase vest quite a bit in most of my gravel races, and the chase vest is designed specifically for gravel, so it's built a little bit, I don't know if you guys have talked about it before, but it's built a little more like a running vest, so it's shorter. I can still have access into my jersey pockets. They have a women's specific design too for different chest sizes, and I use that, of course, at Kanza. I mean, that's very important because it's 3.5 hours between each aid station at least. Would there be a reason why I wouldn't use a Camelback chase vest, something that's pretty light? It carries 1.5 liters of water. Is there a reason? I was just expecting I would. I guess I should Google pictures of Leadville.
Sure. The thing I would think about for the difference between Leadville and the really big days you're having out there in Kanza is, like you say, with Kanza, there's a lot of time in between each place where you are getting aid. For Leadville, there is never more than 20 miles between aid stations. And that really boils down to never more than 2 hours. So you don't need a lot of pockets, and you don't need all of the fluid that a chase vest even will hold. Of course, you don't have to fill everything up. But for me, the chase, I think it is awesome for a big day or several hours there. but it's a lot to carry up the Columbine Mine climb. When you're going up to 12,000 plus feet, I would say look for something that is perhaps a little more minimal, that you can swap out fast, that you don't have to carry around in high altitude. That's my thought.
Wear and use, and this is the advice that Fatty and I have given out a number of times regarding how you get your hydration. Wear and use whatever gets you to drink the most. Because as Fatty will tell you, as a 23-time finisher, Leadville is a mountain bike race disguised as a, wait, I always screw it up, Fatty.
It's an eating
and drinking contest
as
disguised as a mountain bike race.
Yes.
Use whatever is going to get you to eat and drink the most, or keep on top of your nutritional needs during the race. If that's a hydration pack, fine. If that's a cup with a straw, use that. If it's bottles, go for that. Whatever it takes. If it's a beer bong, whatever it takes to get fluids in you.
You had me at eating and drinking contest, and then I was like, oh, they mean electrolytes and stuff.
Yeah. So that's the advice we gave out. But I mean, Fatty and I, we did a whole show on hydration packs, Fatty. Remember, we went round and round. I'm a Chase Vest fan too. I think it's a great product. If that's something you're comfortable with and you know how to use it and it's going to enable you to keep drinking, I would say, stick with that.
The fact is, you have obvious, depth and speed experience in gravel. The number of races you have won and raced in what is in many ways very similar to the Leadville 100 is going to be incredibly extensible to the Leadville 100. And so, I mean, in a lot of ways, you could probably take a lot of what you're planning to use and eat and wear and everything for the Steamboat Gravel race and apply it right to the Leadville 100. And I'm kind of curious. I mean, what is your strategy for eating in a long day in the bike? Because I think that the fact that you obviously have that nailed, witnessed by the fact that you have won all of these races and set records in a lot of them.
My goal for eating, so similar to what you guys said earlier, all jokes aside, what I say about these events, and even when I was doing just road racing, was eat and drink early and often, because usually these events start very early in the morning. So you've already eaten breakfast, you've hydrated already, so you're not really feeling it. It's usually a little cold or chilly at the start, and so the first hour can go by and you may not drink because you don't feel like it. And also the starts, as you know, with thousands of people on the start line, can be really hectic and you're nervous and it's chaotic. So I try to tell myself I have to do a bottle an hour, no matter what. I don't care if it's 6 a.m. or, at the heat of the day at 2 p.m. It's a bottle an hour, and I try to consume 250 calories per hour. And what's different, though, than from road racing into more of these endurance, gravel, and then I assume something like Leadville, everyone feels like $1 million at the start. So they're hectic, of course. Everyone's like fighting for position, and they're really fast at the start. And then as the day goes on, it kind of becomes your solo, journey, or, hopefully you're having a positive experience and it's not a trail of tears out there. But it kind of just becomes a death march towards the end, right? As you're just putting one pedal stroke in front of the other. And so then still you're going to be drinking and eating 250 calories an hour, depending on how you do that. And so for me, it's really easy to make sure I put electrolyte with calories. I use GU Energy Labs, and I put some Roctane in there. So each bottle I'm drinking usually has about 150 calories in it. I also like wearing the Chase Vest for that eating and drinking at the start because, it's bumpy. It's sometimes it's dark at the start for something like Kanza or Gravel Worlds. You have to have lights on your bike. And it's easier for me to grab the straw from my Chase Vest than like reach down and get a bottle and worry about somebody crashing in front of me or looking for the best line through some sand or something like that. So it's just a way that I can make sure I'm drinking when I'm nervous and trying to, look at the wheels in front of me. And so at the start of these races, I feel like the intensity level is always higher. So I usually feel like I would in a road race at the beginning. So that's like, if I have one bottle that's 150 calories and I have one gel in the first hour, that's one GU energy gel or whatever, nutrition you like and it's good with your stomach. I recommend always testing that out at a test event or in training prior because you don't want any surprises on race day. But to make sure you get those calories in the first couple hours and hydration is really important. And then after I usually get to 3 or 4 hours in, now you've kind of settled down usually to your pace. Like you should start your own pace anyway, but let's all be honest. It's like everyone's a world champion in the first 20 minutes. Like I've never done Leadville, but I have a feeling I'm going to get attacked up the first climb. And you're like, you realize we have 7 more hours to ride. Like this is a long day. But so yeah, you want to find your pace, but you always feel really good. I just call them world, I call it in time trialing. I used to call it time trial heaven. Like, the first couple minutes of time trial, like everyone's going the same speed. It's just how fast you finish, not how fast you start. But anyway, so after the first 3 or 4 hours, then I've usually just fueled on, gels, electrolyte, and like chews, like GU chews, or, your choice of options. Like, so basically a lot of like electrolytes and simple carbohydrates. And then after I'm usually fine on that for up to 5 hours. But once I start passing that 5 hour mark, I start feeling like, okay, I'm going a little steadier now. I'm not going with accelerations and surges. Like I've found my place in the race, wherever that may be. And now I'm just going for my groove. And that's when I start getting kind of hungry, but also my heart rate settled down. And that's when I kind of just listen to my body and go to whether I eat more complex things like a stroopwafel or a bar, or I move into real food. And at Kansas, for the first 100 miles, which the year I won, we did that in under 5 hours, and that's on dirt with like 6,000 feet of climbing. So we're going really fast, and I'm with the front group of guys. And so I'd only had gels and blocks or chews and electrolyte. And then after that, I switched to, those Mother's frosted circus animals and donut holes.
Those are so good.
Those are amazing. I've done like pizza. Like simple though, like something that you're not, I always think too, what I eat, I'm going to regurgitate it. So like if you burp, you're like, oh, I want it to taste good. So that's why I like donuts and those circus animal crackers, because they taste good like when you burp, and they also taste good going down. Or potato chips. So things that are pretty simple, but it's maybe just whatever I'm craving. So usually in my feed zones or aid stations, I have, something like I have a plethora of things just to, you never know where your headspace is. So you want options, I think. And those seem to work for me. So I think that's opposite, because in road racing, like the intensity, right, is going to increase as you're like going to like the quote unquote sprint finish. But in these long endurance events, I feel like once you find your groove, your stomach, might be settled down, and, you can be able to consume more complex, calories if you need them. And your intensity level is a little lower. I think altitude is going to play a huge factor in this. So I'd be interested how my body handles. I've not been known to race really well at altitude. So I want to be careful of that too, to not go too deep at the beginning. And also if I'm entering this event and not trying to win, I think maybe if I can calm down. But when you have 2,000 people chasing you from behind, it's hard to stay calm. So
for sure.
Yeah. Eat and drink early and often, and like, don't get sucked into being a world champion the first hour. And also like, remember you're at like this race start heaven. Like everyone feels great. Everyone's going the same speed. It's how fast you finish.
So you 250 calories an hour. Are you a tester? Do you go out and get tested every year, Alison? Do you know your RMR, resting metabolic rates? Do you do power testing? How do you arrive at what you need in a race?
Yeah. I actually used to work in physiology. I have a background in biochemistry and neuropsychology now, a master's, but I did a lot of testing on other people and myself in one of my careers I've had. So I've done a lot of blood lactate testing, VO2 max, BMR tests, and I know where I'm at. And it's going to be different for the amount of calories you consume per hour for your size too. If you're a larger person than I am, I'm not particularly small by any means, but if you're larger than I am, then maybe it's up to 350. But you basically don't want to eat too many calories an hour that your body can't metabolize and use as fuel. So usually you'll find that out in training, and it might be good for, you guys I'm sure have that down, but the audience to test to see what you feel good, and then what you start feeling just kind of loads your gut and it's not going anywhere. So that's why I prefer the liquid calories too, because that's an easy, you don't have to think about that as much.
Mm-hmm. Do you race with power meter? What do you do for data during an event? Or do you just go by feel?
I have owned a power meter my entire career since I first started racing. And I do race with power. I train with power as well, but I think it's really important to know your body and to go by feel. I had a team director, actually a world champion and Olympic silver medalist, Mari Holden, that being the scientist that I am and being pretty obsessed with data, she said that was limiting my capability in racing because I was so obsessed with looking at my heart rate and power, speed, just constantly thinking about it. So she took this big old piece of electrical tape, put it over the head unit on my bike, and I was racing the Philadelphia Classic when that was still a race then. Oh man, I'm dating myself. And it actually really helped is to just not look at power. And I think from that day on, I would just set a different screen for racing where, you still want to know distance. You still want to know, time to help you fuel. And also in a lot of these gravel races, I have you need navigation now. So now it's, you don't even want to look at any of those data. And when I'm racing, I don't look at anything besides, distance, time, and then the navigation. Mm-hmm. So I know where I'm turning and when, because I've learned in that last several, 10 years to feel my body and just know what I'm doing. And once you get out there, I feel like in these sustained long efforts, you should just know what your limit is, and then you ride as hard as you can for that duration, which doesn't mean you're doing a 20K TT. You're doing a 100-mile mountain bike race. It's going to take you X amount of time. And how can you sustain that for the time you think it's going to take? And you need to learn your body, but you also don't want to be like, oh my goodness, my power is so high, or it's, oh my goodness, it's so low. Like there's two ways that power can kind of deter you, but you could have that option to look at it. Mm-hmm. I use it more for training and then, of course, download the file. Like I'm not turning off my power meter. I will have a power meter on my mountain bike. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'll ride a Cork and I ride, SRAM Axis Eagle. I'll have, electronic wireless shifting on the thing and definitely have power, but I won't be staring at it at the event, especially because altitude decreases your power exponentially past 6,000 feet. So it doesn't matter what power you're doing. I learned that in racing too. I mean, you never know what power wins the race or what your PR finish time could be if you're trying to target some particular power. You just don't know. So you should just probably take one less concern out of your life.
Yep. So many people I have talked to after the race who have an expectation that they ought to have their heart rate at a certain place and their power at a certain place and didn't take into account that they were at a completely different altitude than they are used to riding at, and they would go out of their way to hit power, to hit a heart rate, and would wind up blowing themselves up well before the finish line. So good thinking there is knowing how you feel is huge. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk to you about is you have, of course, a lot of history in not just gravel, but in road, and a lot of road pros have come to the Leadville 100 and have brought their road race tactics. I'm wondering if the experience that you have as a road racer and as a gravel racer, if there's anything you're planning to bring to the Leadville 100 from a tactical perspective to the race.
No, I think when you have road racing fitness, it's easy to bring road racing tactics. Becoming more of an endurance athlete, as I've done this, gravel thing for a couple years now, you're like, I'm going to go with gravel tactics now, which is a little more conservative, because it's a long day. And I have put a lot of time in people at the beginning of an event to only explode. It's just, you see the fire and explosion in the sky where I am, and then I'm like doing the death march in, and then you get past. So I would prefer not to make that mistake, and I think it's even more imperative to be cautious on those tactics or going out too hard when you're at that high of altitude, because you just can't recover. So I think if you err on the side of caution at the beginning and not use traditional road race tactics, then and be more conservative at the start, and maybe that is road race tactics, conservative and sit on, but I'm not feeling like that's something that I would do personally at this event, but you guys could tell me. I've never lined up. So I just assumed I'd be by myself and singing songs in my head out there wishing I had a beer. I don't know.
I don't think you're going to be alone for a single second during this race. Well, there's 1,800 people out there.
Maybe at the end. I would think only at the end. Maybe if she's with a few at the end, headed towards Boulevard, and then things break up in the final because somebody decides they want a higher placing, or Alison decides she wants a higher placing. That would be like the only spot. I would think. Yeah, you'll find company. I think along
lots of friends.
Yeah.
1,800 new friends. Yeah. I don't know how many I know already, but I'm so excited. I love new friends.
So
at Kansas, you end up by yourself so long. Or Gravel Worlds, you don't. It just depends on the course. So I assumed I'd just be, singing and, wishing and hoping. I don't know.
Yeah. So you've heard Alison allude to a road career a couple of times here. And indeed, she was a pro roadie and a very good one at that. There were a couple of bad crashes, though, for you, Alison, and a couple of bad head injuries, in fact, for you. Was it the injuries that led you away or forced your hand away from road cycling and into dirt? And the second part of my question is, what about dirt makes you feel, there's always risk in what we do. Every time we throw a leg over a bike, there's risk that we could fall and hurt ourselves. But what did you find comfort in the off-road specter that you didn't on the road?
Yeah, as I started in towards the end of my road career, risk and my just general trying to be risk adverse, I guess, was definitely weighing pretty heavy on me. I just really didn't want to have another really high speed, hard crash. And with a traumatic brain injury and a whole life in front of me, I wanted to make sure I'm still a productive member of society. So I found in road racing, you're entering the last corner of a race, and you need to take that inside line, and you need to chop a couple wheels and help your teammates win or set yourself up. And I found that I was getting a little nervous, and I just wanted to break and just say, "Hey, good luck, ladies. Have fun with that finish." And then I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm not willing to do what it takes to be the best in the world at what I'm doing right now. I understand that. I accept that. Moving on. And going into gravel, there are still, of course, there's risks every time, like you said. Every time you go on your bike, there's a risk. And at gravel, our speeds are still high. You're still starting with 2,000 of your best friends that most of them maybe you don't want to ride with. Sometimes, I don't know. I'm a little antisocial on a bike, So I'm actually not, but I like my space. I have a bubble. So I do find a little comfort on the dirt because it's a little different, since you don't have a peloton, there's a little less team tactics and things like that. And these longer events are endurance events, and they become more about raw power, endurance, fueling consistently and performing that way versus, taking this gnarly turn in a criterium or something like that, where it's like you either lose or you win. In gravel, and it's a little different. You can lose the race in the turn, but you can't win it in the turn, most likely, because it becomes a race of attrition and mental fortitude and physical strength. And for me, I do take a little more confidence in that. And I still am very careful and cautious with my lines and where I put my wheel. But I just like that sense of that physical test where in a, say Leadville is going to be an 8 to 9 hour race, it's not one in one moment. Usually, right? It's going to be an accumulation of moments. And in Dirty Kansas, where you're looking at 11.5 to 12 hours, same thing. Taking the line in one corner is not going to win you a race that long. You're going to have to be strong and prepared in so many other ways and just have a good day. So I do like that. And I just I'm a little bit of a bulldozer of an athlete. I was a time trialist, was my specialty. And so I like the calculation and the pacing and those things, but I just kind of like to point and shoot and ride as hard and long as I can. So I love that part about it. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday, one of my training partners, and I said, this is great. I'm the happiest athlete because I get to train the way I want. I don't have to go out and do a bunch of really high intensity road races anymore and put myself at risk. And I just get to ride my bike all day with my friends and eat donuts and have a beer. This is the best life ever.
I think you are going to love doing the Leadville 100. The things that you describe really enjoying track really well to this very big day on the bike. Now, one thing you had mentioned is that you're not super comfortable or haven't had great results at altitude. How are you planning on countering that this year?
I am so bad at altitude. I don't know. I read books on it. I've tried acclimation for, I know I can't do 2 weeks. I've done 3. I'm going to go up to Colorado for probably a solid month prior. And
nice.
You guys can talk me off the ledge here, but I was actually even thinking of doing the Leadville stage race, which is exactly 2 weeks before. I'll get a good recon of the course. I don't know. Do you guys think that's a crazy idea?
No, I think it's a fantastic idea. For one, I understand it's a lot of fun. For another thing, like you say, you get to know the course and get to see it under race conditions, and that is good. And finally, I think that if you're going to do anything besides get to Leadville and do the race the next day, spend a couple of weeks to a month, like you're saying, at altitude to really, really have the time to build up those red blood cells. I think that's a great idea. If your full-time job, and I know that you have a full-time job, will let you work remote that long, I think that can make a big difference in how you feel for all of that time that you're going to spend at 11,000 feet or above.
Yeah,
which for me is where things really start falling apart.
Oh man, I start falling apart above 6,000, so we have a problem. But I'm gonna start, maybe go to Boulder. I have, some old teammates and friends there. Maybe start there, and they start getting a little higher, and just trying to acclimate. And that's my plan. So I'm going to definitely, if I don't do the stage race, I'm definitely going to ride the entire course prior, just so I've seen it, because Leadville is, it's like one of those great white whales, it's like a Moby Dick story, right? Where everyone just talks about it. It's so mythical. And coming from the outside, it's like I joke, like you always know the weather in Boulder if you follow like cycling on Twitter, right? Like I'm like, I always know like the weather in Colorado because all the people I follow. And same thing, like I always know the conditions of Leadville, or, it's just one of those like mythical creatures. And so I don't want to also be so terrified of these climbs that I already know the name of when I never even anticipated of doing the event. So I'm like, oh, there's Columbine, there's Powerline, and there's this and there's that, and it's terrifying, and that's what we do in cycling, right? We glorify the terrifying and the suffering.
Oh, yeah.
So I would like to see them firsthand, because sometimes you're like, yes, that was terrifying. That was the worst thing I've ever done. But a lot of times you show up, you're like, everybody told me to be so scared about this. And yeah, it was really hard. It really challenged me. But you know what? I kicked its ass. Like, it's fine. Like, I was fine. So I would like to see him before, so I have a little more confidence in my ability as in my baggies. Maybe I'll ride it in my baggies just for Instagram.
Yes. Baggies.
Yes, that's what I'll do.
Yes. Totally. I totally agree with I think you're on the right track there too with the stage race. If you can get to the other great thing about it is you see the course spread over 3 days. So it kind of gives you time to go, okay, I saw the first third today. You can think about it for a while. What did I like? What did I learn? Then you go out the next day and you can kind of pile up your notes that way. But if not, just go there and ride the course. You just got to wait till I think July or late June till the snow melts, because they get snow there for quite some time. Alison, what else will you do to set yourself up for? Obviously, you have more on your calendar than Leadboat. So, what else is in your 2020 schedule, and what other things will you do to set yourself up for success leading into the summer?
Yeah, so my first, I'm breaking up the year in 2 parts. I actually still use a calendar that you like write on. I don't know even.
What?
No, I don't know why, but I love to write on a 8.5 by 11 like calendar that's like 1 month at a time. So I've just finished that. So my first buildup will be the first peak or place I want to be successful is Dirty Kansas, which is May 31st. So everything I do the first half of the year is going to be a build to Dirty Kansas, and I work with Carmichael Training Systems. So I have a coach, Adam Pulford. So I said not to talk to me yet. I'm not ready to train yet, by the way. I'm like, I want to eat and drink, and I still do that when I train too. Shoot. I don't know what's going to change. I just don't want to be held accountable for anything. So once I start training, he just said, text me when you're ready. Who knows when that will be? I'm like, good luck. I'll probably talk to you in January. I don't know. I still ride, by the way. So I will do a build into Kansas, and then I'm thinking of taking, obviously after that, you're pretty tired. It takes a bit out of you. You can recover in a few weeks. And then start prep into Leadboat, which for me is going to be probably going back to the Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder, which is 5-day stage race outside of Bend, Oregon, up there around the Cascades. It's amazing, guys. It's camping every night and you ride. It's just gorgeous. So that'll be nice, just endurance miles, no stress, don't have to win, just go and ride my bike with my friends. And then pretty much prep into, and that's kind of at altitude. It's not much, but it's maybe 4,000 feet some days, 5,000, 3,500 others. So it's just kind of a nice little build. And then, pack my bags and, around July, head to Colorado. So we'll see. The other big events, I have a few fun ones, I like to support, and people write me to come out to a gravel race or something. So I'll throw in, of course, my local racing series here. I'll head to Oklahoma for the gravel grinder there and either do Belgian waffle ride or Chino gravel. So it's pretty much all into Kansas, and then I need to assess the situation, recover as much as I need to. And then I think it's just about getting to altitude and checking out the course. Oh, I need to ride a mountain bike. I know, guys. You're stressing out.
I was going to say, I was starting to go, I haven't heard the word mountain bike here yet.
I think I've blocked it from my mind. It's like I'm compartmentalizing the fact that Leadville is actually on a mountain bike, except the fact I get to wear baggies and like flannels all the time, right? And I say it bro. I can say bro or something. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about being a mountain biker.
Oh, I'm afraid you're going to be super disappointed with the mentality of at the Leadville race. Leadville is, I would say, probably the most type A mountain bike race there is. It is a lot of people who have, it is the race, and they, most people have tried to get in half a dozen times. And so when they get in, they take it really seriously. And by they, I mean me. So I'm not putting these people down. These are my people. But no, I don't know how much.
I was going to say type A sounds like my type of people.
Good.
Okay.
I'll just, you're going to fit in just great. One thing that I am wondering is this is just day 1 of 2 for you, for the Leadville 100. You need to finish in such a state that you feel good enough to pack and travel and unpack and find where the starting line is for the next day. Starting at, I think, 6 a.m. again.
It's way too early.
You just aren't going to get to sleep much that night.
I know somebody wrote me on Twitter and they're going, well, you won't have fun at Leadville because you won't be able to drink beers and hang out afterwards. And I was like, oh, yes, I will. True. I train for that. I'll be fine. Okay. I train for this. But I did talk to my support crew and my mechanic on those logistics for between the transfers. So I'll basically have my chase vest or pockets, whatever, everything already full, like 2 separate bags, one for Steamboat, one for Leadville.
Smart.
And have everything's dialed as far as that's concerned. And maybe I was thinking too, for the time when I'm in Colorado, my former teammate, and she actually puts on Steamboat gravel, SBT gravel, Amy Charity. She lives in Steamboat, so maybe I can go stay with her for a couple of days. We can ride parts of the course. I'm not that worried about Steamboat gravel. I'm not trying to, I don't think I can win it after doing Leadville the day before. So for me, it's just like, how do I have a good day? So I think it's having the bike, chains lubed, everything's ready, bike is on the car, locked, or however you need to have it done, where the Diverge, because I'll ride a Diverge for SBT. So that thing is already whole separate chase vest, nutrition dialed. So all I have to do is, have some beers after Leadville, head to Steamboat. I don't know, probably not get any sleep, and then do that event. And that event more is about finishing in a positive way, enjoying the day. And I think that one looks like you're in a group too. So hopefully at least getting in a group that you can roll a bit with and not get it completely shelled or be so sore. And then, I think it'll be interesting. It's going to be a little bit of logistics nightmare, but I think if you do a lot of preparation ahead of time, hopefully it'll be relatively smooth. And then I'm trying to convince Amy to take me on a hike up a 14er on Monday after. Because I thought I should make it 3 stages.
Let's see. You started this interview by saying that you're a little crazy. I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, she goes, we could go to the hot springs. And I'm like, yeah, after the hike. Like, I want to go hike up to 14,000 feet because I hiked Mount Whitney this year a couple weeks ago. So now I just think I'm a mountain climber now. And I'm like channeling John Muir. I don't know.
Yeah. We missed you in Bakersfield, Allison. I know that you've attended some of Sam Ames events down in Bakersfield, I
love that event.
Yeah, I heard you were on top of Whitney instead that weekend, which is fine. And so where does that leave you with Gravel Worlds? Because there's no conflict with SBT Gravel this year, but it is the week after SBT, after the duo.
Yeah, I think I haven't quite figured that out. I think after I talk to Adam from CTS or maybe I need to just call it on the fly, like sign up and then, I don't know what this will do to my body. And I usually recover pretty quickly. I'm really good at long endurance events. So we'll see, but yeah. I'm not committing quite yet. I would like to set up for myself with what I want to do in my career. I've won Gravel Worlds 3 times. I mean, going a 4th time and not in my peak condition isn't ideal for me because, but I love the event and I love supporting them out there. So I will have to figure that out.
It is the next state over, so Nebraska's not too far. It's doable, but wow, yeah, that would be quite a bit on the body. I mean, it's like doing the tour, the Giro Tour double or something like that. That would be quite the abuse there for one summer at least. And there's, I'd imagine your season doesn't end there either, right? You've got stuff that comes after that?
Yes, I'll keep doing some events and races after that, but those are my 2, it's a lot of lifetime events, but, Dirty Kansas and then into Leadboat are my kind of 2 big peaks and pinnacles of my 2020, which makes me really excited because it's a new challenge and I had a hard time after road racing or, during road racing to find goals that inspire me and not to be a motivational speaker, but, people can tell you should do Leadville or, sign up for Dirty Kansas or do an Ironman or go to the Olympics or win a world championships, like whatever your level is. And if it's somebody else's goal and not your own, it's hard to find motivation. And sometimes it's easy to soak up that external validation of what other people want you to do. But then what really actually makes you get out and ride your bike or makes you smile on your bike, more importantly. And Leadville to me I just was like, ooh, it sounds really hard. I'm not good in altitude. I'm not a mountain biker. And I'm already saying all these things I can't do. And so that's why it was just so cool is when Christy texted me and said, here, you should do this. And I loved that part. I'm like, now that is awesome. Doing Leadville and then Steamboat. Wow. Like that sounds like really hard. And it just triggered my heartstrings. And yes, I'm a crazy person, but it made me go, now that's a really cool challenge. Like how do I balance this logistics and my preparation for that? And that was kind of intoxicating. So that's why I signed up for it.
I would say you're crazy in just the right kind of way. Because you're dead on. It doesn't matter what the challenge is. What matters is that the challenge inspires you and gets you excited. And obviously this is a big one for you. To me, I'm going to be honest, it just sounds, the logistics part, I've never done gravel to do all of the 2 things together pretty far apart from each other. It sounds exhausting, but I love that you're inspired by it.
Yeah, I think that's just the point, right? Is finding something that makes you get out and smile, and it's a challenge, and it pushes your limits, and then you're writing your own story and not somebody else's.
Well, Allison, it's such a pleasure talking with you. Looking forward to talking with you more, learning more about gravel, talking with you about as you experience, and I kind of suspect you're going to take to mountain biking in a fast way. Thanks so much for being on the Leadville Show.
Thank you, guys.
Hottie, I don't think it's any coincidence at all that racers like Allison are coming to Leadville, or that other fast expert contributors to the show like Rebecca Rush and Jeremiah Bishop are doing big gravel events.
Yeah, in a way, Leadville is a big gravel race with some mountain biking thrown in for good measure before gravel went big.
Yeah, I know you are already getting into gravel racing, and while it hasn't been my thing so far, I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time before I start trying out some gravel events.
Well, actually, I think you've been on some that have kind of, that mixed it up a little bit. Crusher on the Tusher is one of those types of events that could be called a gravel event or a mountain bike event. And certainly there's a mix of both bikes out there. So you've gotten your feet wet already in the gravel experience. But I'm pretty sure a lot of our listeners are finding gravel is a natural expansion of endurance mountain biking as well. And for season 3, our show is going to start taking a look at gravel, along with more mountain biking endurance events beyond the scope of the Leadville Trail 100.
Yeah, we're going to be talking more about other races and the riders who race them. We've got a great set of experts who will be joining us regularly to answer questions and give great advice. And of course, there will always be gear talk. We never run out of things to talk about gear-wise.
Right, Fatty. We'll be bringing back, for instance, Jeremiah Bishop, Roxanne Vogel, and as you hinted at during the interview, Alison Tetrick as our pro contributors.
Yep, some deep expertise from some amazing athletes there. Honestly, I'm looking forward to learning from these folks. But of course, we're not going to become just a generic cycling podcast. You can find plenty of those other places. The heart of this show will always be at the intersection of Harrison and 6th Street in Leadville, Colorado, the start and the finish line of the Leadville 100. In fact, I should say, one of those new segments I'm looking forward to is one you suggested, Hottie. It is the Faster Fatty segment.
That's right, Fatty. You put in a respectable finish in the 2019 Leadville 100 and others before that too. But as your crew chief, I noticed a number of ways you could have finished faster. And I believe our listeners will find some of those ideas useful too. I think you've got a sub-8 finish in you still, Fatty.
Ooh, I am going to be 54 years old this race, in 2020 when I race. So I will be very interested in seeing how that is possible. I don't think it's impossible. There are people older than me who are finishing faster than I am. So I am definitely up for the idea of finishing faster.
Yeah, I think it's out there for you. Let's wrap up season 2, though, on the Leadville podcast presented by Floyd's of Leadville. Once again, thanks to Alison Tetrick for being here.
And I am so excited to have her as a regular on this show. If you like our show, support it by giving us a 5-star rating and a review over at Apple Podcasts. Also, share it with your cycling friends. Support our sponsors. Let them know you appreciate them making this show possible.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in season 3 of the Leadville Podcast.